March, and listeners of the Hoge and Jahns podcast know exactly what that means. The draft is coming up. No, it's still tournament time. Whether you're a diehard fan rooting on your alma mater or you just love getting in on the bracket craziness, this is the week to kick your feet up and enjoy wall-to-wall college hoops coverage. The only thing that feels better than watching your picks survive in advance is getting paid when they do. At The Athletic, our team of hoops experts and insiders are bringing you the latest news, trends, and insights on the big dance, plus our picks for every single game on the slate in Indy. I like Loyola Chicago. Looking good. And now we're partnering with BetMGM to bring you the best exclusive offer to bet alongside us and win. Right now, we're offering Hoge and Jahns listeners a risk-free first bet up to $600. Just sign up at BetMGM.com and use the bonus code ADAM to take advantage of the special offer from the king of sports books. This offer is for new customers. That's a risk-free first bet up to $600 at BetMGM.com with the bonus code ADAM. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions.
Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, or West Virginia only. Excludes Michigan disassociated persons. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado, Nevada, and Virginia. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan. 1-800-GAMBLER in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. And 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. In Tennessee, call or text the red line at 800-889-9789. Or if you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. Promotional offer not available in Nevada.
Get your popcorn ready.
It's game time, baby.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome
A team that is known as Stoppers.
The Athletic presents Hoge and Jahns,
Every single play, go take it. Bring that juice. Let's go get it. Come on.
Chicago's best Bears coverage.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
From NBC Sports Chicago, it's Adam Hoge.
I do think he has the support of his teammates. Why would you not be rooting for him to succeed?
And from The Athletic, it's Adam Jahns.
I don't mean to psychoanalyze this stuff, but this is what we do in Chicago. This is what we do with their quarterbacks, and this is the biggest story in town.
Here they are, the Adams, Hoge and Jahns.
What's up? Welcome in, Hoge and Jahns and Kevin Fishbain. Going the three-man weave today.
He's got the household plant behind him, if you're watching on YouTube.
It's actually a plant.
Plant is not real.
Fake plant.
Fake plant. No ferns
plant.
for you.
I was gonna
Looks
say,
good, though.
I feel like we're on Zach Galifianakis' Two Fern show.
Next to one flant.
There. Ooh. You should start your own podcast, and that could be the name of it.
Thinking about it.
Next to one plant.
Fishman and his plant.
We're gonna talk Bears and go on the air
Sounds almost inappropriate.
Tuesdays and Thursdays and post game during the season.
Okay. All right. That's what we need. Another Bears podcast. There's plenty of them out there. We were the first, though. Damn it. Right? I think so, at least. Welcome in. We are excited to be here on a Friday. I totally forget why we waited to Friday. I know there was a good reason, but it's Friday now. And so we'll have some Friday fun on here as we get going. You can, if you're watching us on YouTube, on our YouTube feed, you can check that out and see the flant. Kevin Fishbain's hat. What's your hat today, buddy?
Oh, it's the Athletic.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
Representing. I thought about wearing my Northwestern hat to honor the women's basketball team. Strong run. Kind of a bad collapse there against Louisville. I'm sure you guys were watching.
I was aware.
Yeah. I did not watch it, but I did see that they had an 18-point lead in the first quarter and lost. And then I had to remember that they play quarters in women's basketball because I always forget that.
You guys can, as fathers of children, can relate to this. I have to start wearing a hat more, I think, around my house because my son doesn't, like, when I put a hat on, he just stares at me like I'm a stranger. And I've explained to him, like, listen, it's still me. I'm just wearing a hat. Like, don't freak out. I'm wearing a hat. It's fine. You have to get used to this because I'm balding and I need to wear a hat. And he's 7 months old, so he doesn't understand what I'm saying. But we're just trying to get there. So, like, he can, like, see me with a hat and realize I'm still the same person.
For me, it's the glasses. I'm a recent glasses wearer. This is new for me. I'm only 2 or 3 years into glass wearing. And when I first got them, okay, fine. Well, my infant son didn't recognize me at first because of the glasses.
I feel like I have to put on my glasses now because you guys are wearing yours. But All right. And that's enough for the YouTube crowd. Everybody else listening on the podcast have no idea what we're talking about because they can't see us. But you can check out the YouTube if you want. Just go find the Hoge and Jahns channel and subscribe. We appreciate those of you who have done that. Follow us on Twitter at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns, and at K Fishbain on Twitter. You can find all of our content up there and random complaints about Eloy Jimenez getting hurt and excitement over the Vucevic trade. Is it Vukovic or Vucevic?
That is Vukovic.
Okay.
Yeah, Vukovic. I think the PA guy tweeted it.
Yeah, the name's going to get butchered by Chicagoans, but...
All right, well, I already did it once, so there you go. Which is sad, because he's actually one of my favorite players to watch in the NBA. I love that guy, so I'm excited about the trade. And, what a roller coaster yesterday was in Chicago sports. And oddly, the Bears were out of it. They weren't a part of the
they had that
drama.
tweet. They had that tweet the other day. QB1. That was something.
I mean, we could start with that. I'm ready to go on that.
Go ahead.
Well,
Teed you up.
Well, here. Okay, so let's have a multiple choice question here. Were they one? How do I word this? How were they just completely unaware of what that tweet would do? That's option A. Were they purposely trolling their fan base at this point? Option B. Because that tweet felt like a troll. Did it not? That's one option. Or are they 100% trading up for Zach Wilson at number 2, and they are just trying to throw, like, no one's buying the Mike Glennon BS anymore because you already did that. So let's go all in on trying to make sure everybody thinks Andy Dalton's number 1. I'm on to you, Bears. Get out of here.
I find it very hard to believe that Ryan Pace went down to the social media department and goes, "Hey, how's that photoshopped photo of
how's that coming
along? I've been thinking about this, and we don't need to say anything other than QB1. Just put that out there."
Actually, I find it hard to believe that Ryan Pace was involved in that tweet at all.
No.
Is that fair? Like in any three of those options, three of those scenarios.
So,
but I can't figure out which one it is because what a weird tweet.
Yeah. So I'm not going to read too much into it. I think it's just the social media department. And I like all of those people who work for there. I like Larry Mayer. You know, Larry Mayer's somehow involved in this too, I believe. Probably not. But
I doubt Larry had nothing to do with that tweet.
So I
like to think he did.
Yeah, Larry had nothing to do with it, but it's much more fun to assume it was all Larry's idea.
Yes. So let's assume that Bears website reporter Larry Mayer came up with this idea and decided to troll the fan base. But yeah, you saw it. You're like, oh, like my first reaction is like, oh no.
Yeah,
these comments are going to be intense.
It is a very it's a very good social media department. They have jobs to do, and look, we all know how this works. Engagement is an important part of everyone's job, and there wasn't probably a more engaged with tweet in the NFL than that one. What do they say? There's like good publicity, bad publicity. Like they're getting.
There's no such thing as bad advertising.
Yeah, my thing. I had two questions with it. One, Andy Dalton does not seem like the type of guy who needs like the reassurance from the social media department that he's a starting quarterback, right?
Agreed. Yes.
And here's my second thing. Do you know what happened that afternoon? Your team's best player on offense signed his franchise tag. So why wouldn't you put up a picture of Allen freaking Robinson and say WR1 because your best player on offense the past 3 seasons signed his franchise tag?
Well, I think the answer to that is they're still playing games with him.
I'm sure that's the answer, but like, talk about you've had 2 weeks where you've been, 2+ years, decades of being the laughingstock of the NFL. You've been the laughingstock on social media. Your best player signed his franchise tag. Why don't you announce that and celebrate it and promote him instead of, look, everyone's mad about Andy Dalton. So,
and it's not Andy Dalton's fault.
Not Andy Dalton's fault. And I would go ahead and say that I don't know what Bears fans were expecting when the Bears signed Andy Dalton. I don't know what the big deal is. Like, what did you think was going to happen? But yeah, I just think that, like, hey, you had something positive to promote. guy named Allen Robinson signed his franchise tag. There's a long way to go in negotiations. We all know that. But hey, you could promote that instead and see what happens then.
Yeah, that was I don't know. That was after Eloy got hurt, so I was already kind of aggravated. And then I saw it because I don't know. You guys have the Bears on your I get notifications when the Bears tweet, so that came across my phone, and I was like, "Oh no!"
Yeah, same response. Oh no!
Here we go.
The mentions.
Yeah,
the quote tweets.
That was the second time that day I asked, "What are you doing?" Because the first was with Eloy. What are you doing hanging on the wall?
They also had the pictures of Andy Dalton boxing. Did you see those?
Oh, I saw those. That was actually cool. That I have no problem with. Like that, you're showing your guys like
he's got some toughness.
Yeah, he's
gonna
working.
need it. He's gonna need that thick skin here.
I actually thought those were cool. So whatever. He is QB1. There's no question right now.
For now.
Which leads us to our first topic. And there's going to be a lot of hypothetical conversation here because we are moving into draft season, and that's pretty much all hypothetical. But Zach Wilson's pro day is today, as we record on Friday. And we're recording before he's throwing or anything. I'd be surprised if it's a disaster.
I'm going to predict it's going to go very, very well.
Yeah. I'm also going to predict, I don't know this at the time of recording, I'm assuming the Bears will have people there. They've had people at all these quarterbacks pro days. If they didn't, then I would, again, assume that they are drafting the guy. And
Here we go again. It's on again, baby.
There'll be a dinner in Provo tonight. And
what will Zach Wilson's secret name be at the reservation?
Well, it can't be Jim McMahon because that would be too obvious in Provo.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't record. You can't say, "Hey, yeah, Jim McMahon." They're going to actually think Jim McMahon's coming.
He could go Virgil Carter, another former BYU quarterback who played for the Bears,
or Glenn Kozlowski.
There you go.
Koz is back out there. Koz is doing radio for BYU now. Wow, what an idea! He'd be a great guest for this podcast to talk about Zach Wilson. Ding, ding, ding. Can't believe I haven't thought about that before. So let's do that. Maybe next week. So. Here's my question. Is there any chance, because I can't get over even if you don't believe the Dan Patrick report about what the Bears' offer was, if they were even in the conversations, we know that they were offering a ton, right? So regardless. So if they're offering a ton for Russell Wilson and they can't get him, wouldn't they be willing to offer a ton for a quarterback that they might have full conviction on? And I don't know how they feel about Zach Wilson. But when I watch Zach Wilson, I see some of the Patrick Mahomes-like things. I'm not comparing him to Mahomes. I'm just saying he does some special things out there where you're like, he's freewheeling, he throws these off-balance, sidearm, underhand throws sometimes. Just crazy stuff that instinctually can't always be taught. So if they fall in love with that, is that on the table? Is that on the table? Of course, you have to have a willing trade partner, and the Jets, if they love him, why would they trade? Is this something that should be discussed?
There is no doubt in my mind that Zach Wilson has some traits that Matt Nagy would find extremely appealing. Mahomes-like. And let's not forget that he was part of that evaluation in Kansas City that led to Mahomes being their number one guy. So that you can make that connection there. But to me, where this conversation almost starts and ends is, I just can't see the Jets giving up that pick. If anything, maybe today cements maybe they go out to dinner with Zach Wilson tonight or tomorrow, and that cements their belief in the guy. They like his moxie. They like all the stuff he does on the field, and that's it. Conversation over. No trade talks whatsoever. I mean, they have to pick up the phone on certain things, but I can't. I could see how the Bears could fall in love with him, but I don't see how they could potentially trade up for him, if that makes sense.
Harvey Unga, another BYU former Bear.
This whole time he's Googling BYU former Bear.
Yeah, I call Harvey the mayor of Bourbonnais.
Yeah.
Because he was always there every summer.
He was always there.
Yeah, he was
even when he's not on the team, he was just there.
Yeah, it was like 3 years later, he wasn't even on the team anymore, and it's like, Harvey, why are you dressed for practice?
By the way, does anybody else kind of want to go to Bill's training camp to watch Mitch throw it to Tanner Gentry? Is that just me?
Memories. Greg Braggs would.
Yeah.
He'd be there in a heartbeat.
No.
So here's my question to you guys. Like, back to the quarterbacks. I could totally see Ryan Pace's bosses being okay with the type of offer they were proposing for Russell Wilson. I don't know how the bosses might feel about letting the general manager make that kind of move for an unproven rookie quarterback. And on the one hand, if you're going to keep Ryan Pace as your general manager, you better let him do whatever he thinks is best for the team. And you just got to, if George McCaskey is truly hands-off football, he's got to be hands-off. And like, if you're going to keep Ryan Pace, you got to just let him do whatever you want. But I feel like it's not that simple with everything that's been going on over the past year. So I wonder if that is a potential obstacle, not just Zach Wilson, but trading up for any of these guys. I wonder if that is a difficult sell to ownership to say, hey, remember last time we traded up for a quarterback in the draft? I know it didn't work out so well. This time we have to trade up even more to get somebody. Do you mind if we do that in a year that you probably need us to win?
Like, but isn't that the? It's a great point. But
I'm not saying that's. I'm not sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's sound ownership strategy. If he's your GM and he's in charge of football operations, you got to let him do what he's got to do.
Yeah.
But I can see that being a potential conversation that takes place.
If that's your concern, then you should have fired the guy.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
For the offseason. You let him do what he wants to do now. That is the meddling you say you don't do. That is the involvement that you say you don't have. And this applies to Ted Phillips, too, because we all know he can meddle a little bit. He's supposed to be the checks and balances on this, so maybe he needs to hear Ryan Pace out a little bit more. Maybe those talks need to be different. But, again, isn't that the meddling and the involvement that they say they don't have? Here's my question for you guys. What about the other quarterbacks? What about Trey Lance? What about Justin Fields? What if Mac Jones does start to fall into the teens? Do you trade up a little bit for them?
You guys have a little Mac Jones battle going on here, don't you?
We do.
Yeah.
He doesn't like him. I kind of
No,
like him.
it's actually not even accurate. I don't have there's enough about Mac Jones that I'm okay with that, in the second round. And actually, my issue wasn't even, Johns, that you traded up to grab him at the end of the first. I think that's okay. It's just the fact that then the Bears didn't have any more picks until the 6th round. Which, if someone really wanted to do digging on me and call me hypocritical on that, they'd have a point, because I'm the one who said that giving up picks for trading up one spot for Trubisky wasn't the end of the world if the quarterback works out, which would be the same argument here. If Mac Jones works out, you're not going to miss those picks, 3rd, 4th, whatever, 5th round that you gave up in that trade. I wrote about him a couple weeks ago. There's just not enough there for me that's special, I guess.
So you would wait. What if he's there at 20? You don't have to trade or anything. He's there. He's available for the taking. Knowing that quarterback, you put quarterback first in your rankings.
Yeah.
Your positional needs for the Bears, and it should be everybody's. What do you do? And the other guys are gone, by the way.
Right, okay. What's the intel on where Davis Mills. Did I just combine like two? I did the Cal quarterback, right?
Cal went to New York Giants, I believe.
Yeah. He was in the rankings last year. Not David. Yeah. Davis Mills. The more I watch him, he looks like Mac Jones to me, but without all the weapons.
Minus the production. I don't know. I'm hung up on. I feel like Davis Mills has become like this year's where people talk themselves into it.
But here's the Mac Jones argument. If you put Davis Mills in Alabama's offense, I think he puts up what Mac Jones did. Stanford
He wasn't recruited by Alabama. I don't know that.
Yeah, I don't know that either.
Davis Mills, good sneak peek to our next Bears mock draft coming out. But I wonder, guys like this, are the Bears should they want a not special quarterback? And what I mean by that is, how many times have we heard Matt Nagy talk about Alex Smith? Like Alex Smith, I feel like at times is Matt Nagy's perfect quarterback. And Alex Smith is a very good quarterback. He's had a very accomplished career. He was a number 1 pick, but I don't think anybody would call Alex Smith special. One of the things that
special enough to go first overall while Aaron Rodgers sat in that draft room.
Special then, but nobody would say that about his NFL career. I don't think. Maybe Matt Nagy would. But guys like Mac Jones and Davis Mills, who just they could read the defense, they could get the ball to their playmakers and get out of the way. You need a good offensive line. You need to have a good defense. You need all the things the Bears or need to build around Andy Dalton, right? But this time you just build it around a younger quarterback and let him develop. I just wonder if, because, and maybe part of me, the reason I'm thinking like this is because it just seems so impossible, the idea of trading up for a Zach Wilson or a Trey Lance or a Justin Fields, the guys that have that quote unquote special skill sets. But maybe the Bears are, built to, flourish with a guy who just is going to operate the offense the way that Matt Nagy always wanted Mitch Trubisky to do it.
I think you bring up a good point. You can't go out there searching for Patrick Mahomes. Yes, I mean, that's the dream for everybody, right? Finding that next Patrick Mahomes. When I did that story on Trubisky that ended our quarterback series, I talked to Dan Orlovsky, and he says it's almost unfair for quarterbacks now, especially the draft picks, that they're always compared now to Patrick Mahomes and his quick ascension in the NFL, like his quick stardom, his quick development. And he's still developing, but it's the production, it's the situation he went into with Andy Reid, one of the best play callers of all time, with one of the best tight ends, one of the most explosive playmakers in Tyreek Hill. Like, everything was just perfectly set up for Patrick Mahomes. Not every team is going to have that. So you're going to be looking for Patrick Mahomes, but I think some teams just need to realize, especially for picking in the 20s, it's almost an unattainable dream. Yeah, you're settling, but there's only 5 or 6 special quarterbacks in the NFL. For the Bears, finding a tier 2 guy would be like an immense improvement from where they've been.
And this is why you draft a quarterback every year.
Yeah.
This is why so you can have these guys you can develop and maybe they turn into something. Like I was thinking about Kirk Cousins the other day, right? Like
sorry about that.
Well, maybe this is tough because I feel like our view of Kirk Cousins is always skewed because the Bears have just kind of owned him a lot, the way that their defense is played.
Same with Matthew Stafford in a sense.
Yeah, but I feel like either of those two guys would have done pretty well with the current iteration of the Chicago Bears. Even some of the Cutler teams. Like, I feel like those guys would have done fine. Like, I understand, like, you want to find the guy, but if you can't trade up for him, not to go quick hard left turn, but Hoge, has Justin Fields' stock dropped for, like, no real great reason? Like, I feel like it's Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson. Like, everyone, and it used to be Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields. Now, if people are looking at the Big Ten championship when Northwestern's defense was phenomenal, I think you just look at the fact that Justin Fields played one of the greatest defenses in the history of college football. But if you just look at the whole, I mean, then you look at what Justin Fields did against Clemson. I haven't like watched tape on him. I haven't really focused on him yet, but I'm just curious your take on where his quote unquote draft stock is.
Well, I think it's just that inconsistency. Because I've said this before on the podcast, I'm struggling to get that Northwestern game out of my head. Especially because, yes, the Northwestern defense was good, but Ohio State was also running all over them. Like, so it's not like
best pass defense in college football.
Well, but also Newsome was out the second half. Most of the last 3 quarters, he got hurt in that game. Greg Newsome, the cornerback, who's going to go in the first round, for those that don't know who I'm talking about. So it's not even like he was out there. Now, Olave missed that game, the Ohio State receiver, and he's really good. But it's Ohio State. You have like 7 other guys who could come in at any given time and replace them. So I am struggling with that game. But then he comes back and he's amazing against Clemson. And some of those throws, like 60 yards downfield, were ridiculous. But I still think there's some decision making questions that are in there. When you do get a better pass defense, it's going to mix it up and try to confuse you, and you don't handle it well. And I don't know enough about what Clemson's defense did in that game. Was it easier than what Northwestern did? I honestly don't know. I'd have to go back and look at that more. I think that's just where, when you look at Trevor Lawrence and you look at Zach Wilson, there just really aren't those questions right now. It's just pure talent.
So
Now, people love Justin Fields. Like, people who recruited him, I've heard nothing but good things about Fields. So I don't think it's like anything off the field or anything like that, or even questioning his intelligence and stuff like that, like, which sometimes happens and you don't know about. Like, in retrospect, I've heard, why did Mitch Trubisky not get a single Big Ten offer? That's an interesting question in hindsight, right? But at the same time, he went to North Carolina. North Carolina is a really good school too. It's a great school. So I don't know if that really. It's just, these are what I bring that up only because in hindsight, that's sometimes when you're having conversations with people, they bring that up, and you don't really think, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense now. But they still don't always hold weight. These are just the things that come up in the draft conversations, and you got to weed out what's real and what's just sort of thrown out there to throw teams and people off the scent of some things.
To me, Fields and Jones, they strike me as prospects you almost talk yourself out of, right? Like you nitpick, you look for reasons not to draft them. It's like the Deshaun Watson thing. Like you're looking for reasons not to draft this guy. You're going through everything to talk yourself out of this. Well, like Trey Lance is a guy like you talk yourself into, right? Like it's the development, it's the raw ability, it's the idea of potential and promise. Like it's the Trubisky conversation in a sense. If I'm the Bears, don't go overanalyzing Mac Jones and Justin Fields, right? Like they both of them have benefited from strong programs, from being around NFL talent. But those are major programs. Like there's so much value in that, and think that the big games they've been in, the big games that they've won. Don't talk yourself out of these guys, especially if they're there at number 20. That's the way I would view it if I was running the Bears.
What do you guys think about whether it's conscious or subconscious of a Mitch Trubisky effect? Because I was looking at Davis Mills the other day, and I mean the guy has a very limited college tape, right? Similar to Mitch Trubisky. You look at a Mac Jones. You look at who's a two-time, national champion. Look at Kellen Mond, 4-year starter, tons of tape, tons of experience, like the antithesis to Mitch Trubisky. Trey Lance is kind of like Mitch, in terms of the 1-year wonder and just all this hype about his potential and his upside. I'm just wondering, like, where I think this was asked of Ryan Pace in that press conference that Johns isn't allowed to talk about anymore, and he didn't want to go there because he doesn't want to talk about the past. But like, I just wonder like how much that's going to factor in the evaluation process. I know the kind of wild card here is Matt Nagy because this is his quarterback. Yeah, he's involved. So maybe everything I just said doesn't matter as much. But I already said it, and it's already on the podcast, and I'm not going to ask Kent to take it out. So I think you guys are still going to have to run with it.
Here's where I just want to bring up one key difference. Okay. It's important when people look at these quarterbacks. And I'm going to use Trey Lance as an example. So even the first time I wrote about Trey Lance, which was after the one game he played this year against Central Arkansas, immediately on Twitter, right? Every response, oh, this is Mitch Trubisky all over again. He's got talent, but he's only played 11 games or whatever it's been, has, one game in a year, inexperienced. There's one huge difference. Like, if you go back and look at Mitch Trubisky at North Carolina, it was a lot of half-field reads, scheme throws, things that were, made easier for him. Trey Lance, if you talk to the people who are around that program, will tell you he goes to the line of scrimmage and has the freedom to make calls, look at the protections, set everything up, and do all that at the line of scrimmage. That's stuff that Mitch didn't have and ended up struggling with. Right? Pre-snap stuff and post-snap, that's a different conversation. And maybe there's still some questions about, how Trey sees the field once the ball snap. But that's something I love. Like, that is something I remember when Derek Carr came out. And it's still the case today. He's one of the rare quarterbacks, even in the NFL today, that truly have the freedom at the line of scrimmage to basically do whatever he wants because they trust him. Not everyone can do that. So when I hear a college prospect coming out who had that experience, and Carson Wentz had the same thing, if you're going to go the other way and look at somebody who I guess really hasn't worked out, but he was at North Dakota State, same similar thing. But so it's no guarantee he's going to work out. But that's what I like about Trey Lance, that I think is different when people automatically just say, oh, because the inexperience, it's Mitch Trubisky all over again. You know, Mac Jones only has 1 year of starting experience. 2. But I like the fact that he was in that program a long time. And I like that he didn't transfer out. You know, he battled there. He could have easily transferred out with all those quarterbacks and talent they had. But he stuck it in there, and whatever immaturity issues he might have had as a freshman, because I know he had a DUI at one point, doesn't seem to be an issue anymore. So every prospect has pluses and minuses like that, I guess is the point. They're not all Mitch Trubisky just because, A, that didn't work out, and B, you know, inexperience. What type of inexperience is it? It's not just about playing. It's about what they're asking them to do in their program when they're on the field.
With Lance, I would struggle if I was a scout examining his tape against, this is his 2019 tape, against like Illinois State, Southern Illinois. Now, all programs produce NFL caliber players, guys that are undrafted, guys that are drafted late. Like, I get all that. Like, the talent is everywhere. But doesn't that give you some hesitation?
Mm-hmm.
It would for me.
It does until... So here's the thing I look at pro days. It's not so much how they perform. It's you can still get a good look at how the ball like jumps off their hand.
He had a game, I just pulled up the stats, against Youngstown State where he attempted 9 passes. 9 passes. 7 for 9 for 160, 3 touchdowns. They blew this team out 56-17. Like, I'm just trying to like...
Well, you said two things there that I have both, because I had this pointed out to me that, like, as a concern, why are there so many games where he, like, I think I had this written down at one point in one of my stories about him. Like, I think he only has like 2 games ever where they asked him to throw the ball more than 23 times.
That's correct.
Something like
right
that.
now. Yeah.
So,
31 is his high. 31.
And I think that only happened like once or twice where he was above 23.
Correct.
So it's now, but there's a couple things going on there. Again, this is why you can't just like look at one number. So he's on a national championship team. So first of all that stuff we say about Mac Jones, winning, being in a program, like it also applies to Trey Lance. It might be a lower level, but that is a big time winning program. Okay. They also run the ball a lot, and you pointed out the score. Whatever you just said, 55-17 or whatever.
56-17.
They're not airing the ball out after they run up the score in the first half. So that it does explain a little bit. I think it's totally fair to be like, well, why don't throw the ball out with him? Do they not trust him? And then you do your homework a little bit. You look at the offense they're running, the scores of the games that they're playing in, and you kind of understand what happened there. Or I'm doing what you said earlier, which is talking myself into a player.
Like, yeah, maybe it's recency bias, but Mac Jones' performance against Ohio State in the national championship, like I know he's surrounded by receivers who are going in the first round. I get all that. First round linemen, I get all that. But like, Ohio State's got some pretty explosive, pretty dynamic players too. And he was phenomenal in that game, to use a Dave Kaplan word. Phenomenal in that game against in a major game, against a major opponent, against a major quarterback. That would stick with me if I'm evaluating him. That's where I would differentiate between Trey Lance's championship run and a Mac Jones championship run.
Do you think? And like I've thought about that too with Mac Jones. You know, he just. Like, you think about where the Bears, you know, when they aired on Deshaun Watson, you know, and like one of the things I remember when you talk to people about Deshaun Watson is like, he's a winner. Everywhere he's been, he wins. And Mac Jones, like, he's a winner. Like, he had a lot of great people around him, but he won. And that brings me my question is, how much do you guys think it's impacted the quarterback evaluation right now for this front office that there was not a Sun Bowl this year?
Kevin's just full of jokes on this podcast today, everybody.
He set that one up pretty good.
I'm going to look up I'm going to try to see who was in last year's Sun Bowl while we
No, don't care.
If Mitch wasn't in it, it didn't matter. Big
Arizona
storyline.
State. Arizona State. Who is their quarterback? I'll work on this. I'll let you guys know when I'm ready.
Thank you. We'll be waiting for the answer. We're really excited for it. Let's talk about the draft needs then. So do you guys, I have quarterback still number 1. Do you guys agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
What do you put at number 2?
Offensive line.
Wide receiver.
Ooh.
Okay.
Well, sorry. Yeah, go Hoge.
Well, I have cornerback second now. And then I have wide receiver, and then I have more specifically offensive tackle. Is that?
Yeah, if I had to, I'm not talking about drafting a guard. I'm talking about drafting a tackle that to eventually replace Charles Leno Jr.
I think I feel like my brain is skewed by, and it shouldn't be, by like the trends of this front office and coaching staff. Like when you think of, they just never put any resources into offensive tackle. They've poured a lot of resources into wide receiver over the years, whether it be draft or free agency. And I just keep coming back to this Kenny Galladay thing. And just, it seems like there is a very, legitimate desire to bring in another big time weapon. And I just also, and I said this to Johns the other day, like they have Allen Robinson, they have Darnell Mooney. It's kind of it, right?
I agree.
At wide receiver,
they obviously can't trust Anthony Miller anymore.
Yeah, like I think. So I said wide receiver is a top need. I think they should draft an offensive tackle in round 1 or 2. I think you have to, but you have your 2 starters, and now you have a backup. Like you theoretically have guys you could roll into 2021 with and be okay. I'm not saying that legitimizes not taking one early, but you could say that about offensive tackle. I don't think you could say about wide receiver. And Hoge, to your point about corner, I don't think you can say about corner right now. I mean, you have Jalen Johnson, and you have I think that I think it's underrated, the Desmond Trufant thing. But the problem is the durability. I mean, that's a big question.
Well, and the one thing I want to point out with the corner, this is where I went back and forth on like this idea that the Bears could maybe draft a corner in the first round now because it's become a bigger need. They don't have Kyle Fuller. I do think the one thing to point out, though, that's important is even though the styles are basically switching here, I think Jalen Johnson is now viewed as the Kyle Fuller of the 2 cornerbacks. Not style, because he's probably more of the press guy rather than the drop back and play off guy. But I'm talking about like when the Bears had Kyle Fuller and Prince Amukamara, like just in terms of one being the younger guy you can count on, the other one being the veteran that you're just trying to bring in more on the short term. That's Desmond Trufant now, right? So I'm talking about the way in which they're constructing the roster and specifically at that position. It would not surprise me if that's how they view it, that they don't necessarily think it's an enormous need just because they got rid of Kyle Fuller, because now they have Jalen Johnson as that long-term younger corner that they know that they can count on for years. And if next year they need to replace Desmond Trufant in free agency, they can. But I think it's a little bit different and riskier mainly because of durability for both players. I don't know that you can count on Trufant for 16 games. I think it's kind of reckless to think that. And Jalen Johnson's shoulder, I mean, is that going to be an issue going forward? It might be. We don't know that. And so I do think it's risky to just count on that. And meanwhile, they don't have they really don't have a great slot option right now. So, like, if you love Greg Newsome, can't he be drafted and then immediately play slot for you for a year and then maybe move outside next year to replace Trufant? Or if Trufant gets hurt early in the season or whatever, then he kicks outside. It's just something to think about there. I would not be offended if they draft a cornerback in the first round. I think it's justified at this point.
You just want the Bears to take a cornerback you know well.
I mean, it always helps when they draft players I know well, obviously.
You got something, Kev? I got a point here. You go ahead.
So I was gonna say right around this time last year, I wrote about how the Bears had continuously failed to stockpile premium positions in the draft.
Yes.
Right, and we're gonna have something on this next week. Offensive tackle, corner, quarterback, and wide receiver a little bit, right? But like tackle, corner, quarterback. Those quarterback you say draft one every year. Corner you say you can never have enough. Edge rusher you could say you can never have enough. And offensive tackle, and they've ignored those years. I wrote this last year.
Yeah,
they didn't really address them last year in the draft, and here they are without a whole lot of draft capital, and they need guys at all those positions. Like this is what happens when you just don't. I don't want to say don't take those positions seriously, but you don't have guys in your pipeline that you could develop. Like if they treated other premium positions the way they treat the defensive line, they'd be in really good shape right now to hit a lot of different spots.
Which is this is why the offensive tackle thing matters. Because I agree, and this is why I actually put corner ahead of tackle, and people got mad at me for that. But because I sometimes think we overrate the need for tackle when I'm talking about specifically with Leno and when they had Bobby Massey. Like those guys were okay, and I still think people overrate. I don't know why people pick on Charles Leno. He's actually okay. Like, it's not a major problem. It is not a major problem. And I think if you actually look how Ifedi played at right tackle at the end of last season, did not allow a sack, or he allowed one sack the last 6 weeks, and he did not allow a single pressure in the last 4 weeks. Those are real numbers. Okay, so he played pretty well out there. But it starts to it's more so in the mindset of, so maybe that's not an enormous need next year or this coming season. But to your point, Kevin, like you have to still take swings at those premium positions and have guys ready in the pipeline. So neither one of those guys, Ifedi or Leno, are signed to be on this coming season. So what's your plan beyond this season? And if you draft a guy in the first round and he turned out to be an absolute stud, well, then you put him out there because he's probably still an upgrade. Like, I'm not saying you can't. You can definitely do better than the guys you have. I just don't know that it's an immediate, like, red alert problem that they have to solve.
It's all an issue because we're all, to Kevin's point, we're talking about the most important positions on the field. And a lot of these guys, Allen Robinson, 1 year deal, right? He's here for 1 year. Like you said, Charles Leno Jr., he's got 1 year deal, 1 year left on his deal.
I think so.
I know Ifedi's got one, but you could get out of Leno's deal anyway. It's Andy Dalton, QB1, 1 year deal. QB1 with a 1 year deal. That's a problem. It's a major problem. Those Desmond Trufant, 1 year deal. Most important positions on your team. That is what the Bears face this year with the draft now a month away.
Trade up, take Rashawn Slater. Trade back into the end of the first round, take Greg Newsome. Take Peyton Ramsey in the 6th. You're good to go. Offensive tackle, corner, quarterback.
What about Riley Lees?
What about Patty Fisher?
I mean, look, you still got more picks. I just was giving you the three positions we were just talking about.
John's traded all the picks. There are no picks.
Well, you would have to trade all those to get Rashawn Slater too. So
yeah, probably. All right. Well, this is a good unexpected transition in draft season here. Draft month. That's basically what we're in.
It's a month out.
I don't know how much activity the Bears are still going to be doing on the free agent wire. They do have DeAndre Houston Carson, though.
1 year deal. Again.
1 year deal. What about Cordero Patterson?
I think Damian Williams kind of takes his roster spot.
Actually, this is so. Is Tariq Cohen the returner now?
I can't recall ever seeing him return a kickoff.
I can, right before he set up the Cody Parkey double doink.
That was a pretty good kickoff return.
That's right, yeah. Forgot about that one. Gosh, the things that just get forgotten because of the double doink.
Well, yeah, we're like that. Well, and so here's the thing. I actually like that idea of using Cohen more in the return because he's already kind of an offensive specialist, right? But, of course, that's how he got hurt last year was on a punt return, right? So maybe that's not wise. I don't know. He looked pretty good in that Eagles playoff game, though, returning that kick when he hadn't done it much at all. And he, gave him a chance to win. Just something to think about. All right, well, I'm going to go cry more about Eloy Jimenez's defense, and I'll save you guys from that. Hope everyone has a good weekend.
Yep. Have a good weekend, everybody.
And I don't know what the plan is for next week. We'll come up with one.
We'll be here.
We'll be here. All right. Follow us on Twitter, at Adam Hoge, at Adam Jahns. Kevin, thanks for being here. It's good having you on the podcast the whole time. At K Fishbain. So you guys have a mock draft coming out Monday?
Check it out.
There it is. If you listen carefully in the podcast, they gave away at least one of their picks. I'm not going to say what it was, but it happened. I heard it. You gave away 2 of your picks. Ooh. So you can go back and listen to this podcast again if you really want to. Please rate and review the pod. We appreciate you doing that. Check out our t-shirts, obviousshirts.com. Tons of options. Actually, I screwed up. I'm wearing one, but I'm not really showing it off. So if you're on YouTube, you can see the collaborating since 2015 shirt. And what else? Tell your friends. We appreciate you. Word of mouth is great. Oh, I got a picture from my uncle wearing a Hoge and Jahns t-shirt, guys.
Where?
He's a Packer fan.
Ooh.
He's a Packer fan, but he's wearing the Hoge and Jahns logo with the bear. He said it's the closest thing to Bears gear he will wear. It also has his last name on it, though, so I think he likes it.
Fair enough.
Because he is a Hoge. All right, we appreciate the support, even from our family. It's very nice. Thank you to everybody. All right, we'll talk to you next week.
See ya.
Y'all stay corona free, all right? And God bless.